Hey, tonight, we're slowing down. We're not stepping into battles or untamed frontiers. We're slipping quietly into something much more subtle. Something quieter. Something more human. Tonight is about the forgotten corners of history. Not kings or wars, but paper, ink, ritual, silence. We're going to explore what it meant to live through the quiet moments. The ones no one thought to write down, yet shaped entire lives. The way someone might return to the same desk each morning. The way the scent of a candle might linger longer than the words on a page. It's not dramatic. It's not thrilling. But it is steady. And sometimes, that's what we need. So if you've had a long day, if your mind is heavy, or your eyes are tired, dim the lights. Maybe light a candle of your own. Pull the blanket a little closer. And let the quiet hold you for a while. If you're enjoying these slow journeys through the past, a like or subscribe helps more than you know. I'd also love to hear where you're listening from. Drop a comment. Let me know what time it is there. It's always beautiful to see how far this quiet reaches. Now, let's begin. The year is 1787. The world outside is settling into twilight. Along the narrow country roads of southern England, where the earth is still damp from an earlier rain, a stillness begins to descend. In a modest village tucked between fields and orchards, the wind has slowed to a whisper. Faint birdsong lingers in the hedgerows, tapering off into the long hush that comes just before true nightfall. In a small stone house on the edge of this village, a candle is lit. Its flame dances gently in the breeze slipping through an open window, curling the edges of lace curtains that flutter like slow, sleepy breaths. The window looks out onto a quiet lane where nothing stirs now but a lone blackbird perched on a fence, preening in the amber light. The world, so vibrant during the daylight hours, has softened. Its colors have muted. Its motion has stilled. Within the house, shadows grow long and golden. They stretch across polished floorboards, climb the walls, and settle into the quiet corners of the room. The air carries a familiar warmth, a mingling of wax and old paper, hearthwood and dried lavender. This is the smell of comfort, of evenings passed in peaceful repetition. You are here, at home, at your writing desk. The desk is simple, handmade, and worn smooth at the edges by years of steady use. It stands beside the hearth, where a few glowing embers remain from the day's earlier fire. The room is silent except for the occasional tick of a brass clock on the mantel. Its rhythm is soft, reassuring, like a heartbeat in a quiet room. There are no carriages rumbling by, no sharp voices, no demands for your attention. Only this moment. On the desk lies a single sheet of cream-colored parchment, thick and finely pressed. Your inkwell sits close by, small and glassy and filled with dark, rich ink made from oak galls and iron salts. The quill you've chosen is from a goose feather, its spine sturdy, its nib carefully trimmed. It rests beside the parchment, ready but patient. The candlelight flickers gently, throwing soft shadows across the objects on your desk. A small paperweight, a pair of spectacles, a porcelain dish of sealing wax, and the seal itself, a small brass stamp bearing your initials. These are your companions for the evening, tools of a quiet and thoughtful craft. Outside, the last hues of sunlight are fading from the sky. A gentle indigo takes their place, and a sliver of the moon begins to rise above the roof lines. The air cools slightly. A breeze sighs through the open window and carries with it the scent of distant soil and hay, mingled with the faint perfume of the rose bushes that line the garden path. You draw in a deep, quiet breath and exhale slowly. Your fingers brush lightly over the surface of the parchment. It is smooth, untouched. Waiting. There is no urgency. No pressing matters to attend to. This is a ritual, not a responsibility. A letter to a friend, perhaps. Or a journal entry for yourself. Something reflective. Something personal. The room glows in tones of gold and chestnut. Each object takes on the softness of the light, and even your own hands seem gentler in this setting. You take a seat in the wooden chair that fits just so beneath the desk. It creaks familiarly beneath you. The chair and you have settled into one another over the years. You shift slightly, finding a comfortable position. Your back straight but not stiff, your shoulders relaxed. The quill feels natural in your hand. Not like a tool, but like an extension of thought, a bridge between your inner world and the page. You do not begin writing yet. Instead, you sit quietly, letting the stillness of the room seep into you. You let your thoughts settle like silt in calm water. The day's concerns, small errands, idle conversations, the weather, all drift away. You are present now, grounded, unhurried. The fire crackles softly behind you. A single ember pops, sending a tiny flare of light into the dim room. You do not turn to look. You know its rhythm. You know this room in all its moods, all its seasons. On a small table nearby sits a cup of tea. The steam curls gently into the air, its scent a mild blend of chamomile and honey. You lift the cup slowly, the warmth seeping into your hands, and sip. The flavor is soft, floral, grounding. It invites you to slow even further. You return the cup to its saucer with a muted clink and smile faintly to yourself. A cat, gray and drowsy, sleeps curled in a corner chair. Occasionally its tail twitches, or its ears flick at a sound only it can hear. Otherwise, it sleeps deeply, lulled by the peace that blankets the house. You reach for a book nearby, an old volume with gold-embossed lettering and a spine faded by years of sunlight. You open it not to read, but simply to touch the pages, to feel the familiar texture beneath your fingertips. You run your hand along a passage you've memorized, a favorite line about quiet evenings just like this one. The comfort is immediate, like hearing the voice of an old friend. The candle has burned lower, and its flame trembles now and again. Still, it holds steady enough to cast a halo of light across the desk. You glance once more at the parchment. You think of the words you might write, the tone you wish to set. Perhaps something affectionate, something introspective. A story from your childhood, a walk through the orchard, a poem you half remember. The words do not come all at once, nor should they. They arrive slowly, like rain beginning on a still lake. Thought by thought, image by image. You close your eyes and listen. To the whisper of the wind through the trees. To the quiet tick of the mantel clock. To the sound of your own breathing, even in calm. Here, there is no performance. No need to impress. Only expression. Only truth, in its simplest, most generous form. And still, you do not rush. You know the letter will come. When it is ready. For now, it is enough to be here. In the hush of twilight. In the warmth of candlelight. In the deep, unspoken grace of this hour. The outside world continues, unseen but not unwelcome. In another home, a child is being read to sleep. Farther down the lane, an old man tends the last of his garden by lantern light. Somewhere across the fields, a fox stirs in the underbrush. But here in this room, in this moment, you are alone, and yet not lonely. You are in company with silence, with memory, with time itself, stretched gently and without insistence. The house breathes softly around you. Its wooden bones warmed by the last of the sun, its corners soothed by the scent of paper and wax and tea. And you are exactly where you need to be. You pick up the quill and begin. The candle burns low now, its flame casting elongated shadows across the wooden surface of your desk. The room is silent except for the slow, steady tick of the mantel clock and the occasional soft creak of the timber settling for the night. Outside, the world sleeps beneath a velvet sky dusted with stars. But inside, you are awake, quietly, intentionally so. This hour is not made for noise or urgency. It is a time for preparation, a time to gather what is needed for the ritual of writing. You reach first for the paper. It rests in a stack to your left, thick sheets of parchment with edges softly feathered from being cut by hand. As you lift the topmost sheet, you feel the quiet weight of it, how it resists just slightly, holding itself with a quiet pride. It is not merely paper. It is a surface that welcomes thought, memory, and care. The sheet is ivory in tone, not bright white, and holds a slight texture, just enough to catch the edge of a quill. It smells faintly of cotton and sun-warmed linen, a comforting scent that speaks of artisans, mills, and slow time. You place the sheet on your desk, smoothing it with the palm of your hand, anchoring its edges gently under a small round paperweight. The paperweight itself is made of glass, with tiny bubbles trapped inside like stars captured in amber. To the right of your parchment lies your inkwell. It is squat and round, made of dark green glass, hand-blown and ridged from the artisan's touch. You lift it slightly and listen to the ink swish within, deep and thick, dark as river water at dusk. The scent is quiet and organic, with a faint tang of iron and tannin. Oak gall ink, made from wasps' nests and tree bark, brewed in slow batches until its color turns from rust to night. You uncork the inkwell slowly, hearing the soft pop as the seal releases. A sliver of silence follows, respectful, as if the room itself pauses for this unveiling. The ink shimmers faintly in the candlelight, like obsidian polished to a gloss. Beside the inkwell rests your quill. It is a feather from a gray goose, stiff yet supple, the nib carved to a delicate angle. Its spine runs firm under your thumb as you pick it up, feeling the slight give of the shaft. It has been trimmed by your own hand, over many quiet evenings like this one. The act of shaping a quill is a ritual in itself, cutting, refining, testing on scraps until the line it draws is neither too bold nor too faint. This quill has already served you through several letters, its tips slightly darkened with use. Yet it remains reliable, faithful in its craft. You test the nib on a small piece of blotting paper, letting a single drop of ink settle and spread. The ink soaks into the fibers slowly, forming the smallest blooming circle, like a pebble dropped in still water. You adjust your grip on the quill, mindful of its balance, and exhale gently. The first movements of writing are never hurried. The wrist relaxes, the fingers soften, the breath deepens. The candle flickers, casting a halo of light onto the waiting page. But before ink meets parchment, your eyes scan the desk once more. A small blade lies nearby, a penknife, not for defense but for refinement. Its handle is wooden, smoothed by the oils of your hand, and its blade is thin and sharp, perfect for trimming a stubborn nib or cutting a seal. You remember sharpening this blade last month, the quiet rasp of whetstone against steel. It needs no attention now, but its presence is reassuring. Next to it sits your wax, a cylinder of deep red, marbled faintly with flecks of gold. The wax smells of pine resin and beeswax, and though you will not seal this letter until it is complete, its presence is a gentle reminder of completion, of closure, of the soft stamp at the end of all things. You reach for your seal briefly, tracing the initials carved into the brass. The letters are yours, but more than that, they are a kind of promise. That what is written is honest. That it is offered with care. There is also a cloth for blotting, folded neatly and laid just so. The corners are yellowed, its fibers slightly frayed, but it is soft and familiar, like a page well read. It has absorbed many letters before this one, caught their excesses, calmed their smudges. It will do so again. A small porcelain dish sits to one side, filled with sand, not for decoration but utility. Should the ink blot, should the page curl, should the quill hesitate, this dish holds the remedy. The sand is pale beige, its grains fine and uniform. You stir it gently with a finger, feeling its coolness, its slow shifting weight. And then, of course, the candle. Its flame leans slightly to one side, stirred by a faint breeze through the window, but it holds steady. The wax has formed a shallow bowl around the wick, golden and warm, its scent subtle, just enough to remind you of honey and linen. The light is low but sufficient. It bathes everything in amber. You sit back for a moment, taking in the arrangement before you. Each tool has its place, each item its purpose. Nothing excessive. Nothing wasteful. There is beauty in this minimalism, in this intentional calm. It is not the grandeur of libraries or the complexity of printing presses. It is the simple, deliberate act of preparing to write. The room seems to breathe with you. Inhale, and the window curtain sways. Exhale, and the embers shift quietly in the hearth. You sip from your tea once more, now lukewarm, but no less soothing. The herbs are soft on your tongue, their bitterness faded with time. The cup returns to the saucer with the faintest tap. Even this, a part of the rhythm. You adjust your seat slightly. The chair creaks, not uncomfortably, but with the voice of age and familiarity. It has held you through years of such nights. Through love letters and eulogies, confessions and poems. Through moments of clarity, and others of doubt. It knows your posture. It cradles your quiet. Your eyes return to the page. The surface is unmarred. Expectant, but not impatient. It waits with the same steady silence that fills the room. You rest your palm on its edge. The texture rises to meet your skin. A thought stirs. A memory. A phrase, perhaps, or a fragment of something half-formed. You lift the quill once more. This time, you do not test it. You do not hesitate. The ink clings gently to the nib, a single drop forming like dew at the edge of a leaf. And then, softly, quietly, you write. The line curls onto the page in dark, glistening strokes. It is not perfect. It wavers slightly. But it is honest. It is yours. You pause after the first word. Not out of uncertainty, but reverence. This is how all things begin. With preparation. With care. With intention. And with the quiet, unwavering faith that each line written is a step toward understanding, connection, and peace. The candle has burned steadily now for over an hour. Its pool of wax glistens softly, and the flame wavers only gently in the rhythm of the room's breath. You have prepared everything with care, paper, ink, the perfect quill, and now, finally, the act of writing begins. The first stroke is simple. Just a curve. A line. It does not need to say everything. It only needs to begin. You draw the quill across the parchment with slow, deliberate movement. The ink flows as though it knows the path before it. A letter, perhaps the word, dearest, or simply a name. The name of the one to whom this letter is intended. Someone far but familiar. Perhaps a friend, a sibling, a lover. Perhaps no one in particular. Perhaps it is to the evening itself. The first sentence takes shape. The light tonight is soft, the air still, and I find myself thinking of you. There. That is enough. Already the mood is set. The letter has direction. You do not rush. Each word is formed with care, your hand adjusting its pressure with instinct born of repetition. The ink darkens slightly as it settles. Then it fades to a gentle matte. You pause between sentences, not to think, but to breathe. To listen. The house is still. The only sounds are the hush of the wind outside and the ticking of the clock. You are utterly alone, yet completely accompanied by the moment. Another line follows. The garden this afternoon was quiet. A blackbird hopped across the stones near the well, his feathers catching the light like oil on water. I watched him for what felt like an hour. He seemed unhurried. We shared that moment in silence. You smile softly at the memory. It had happened only hours before, but already it feels distant, softened by the layers of time and dusk. That is what writing does. It returns you to the stillness you once felt and allows you to pass it gently to another. Your fingers find their rhythm now. The quill dances across the paper in long, graceful arcs. You write not to fill the page, but to mark time, to honor it. There is comfort in the repetition of days. I washed the teacups this morning, then walked to the post house. The road was muddy from last night's rain, and the air smelled of leaves. There were puddles where the horses had passed, their tracks soft and blurred. I thought of how many such walks I have taken, and how each one, though similar, carries its own particular stillness. You dip the quill again. The ink glistens. You blot lightly before continuing. Do you remember the bench beneath the sycamore tree? I passed it today. The grass around it has grown tall. I thought of how many afternoons we sat there, watching the sun fold itself into the fields. I don't think the tree has changed, though I suppose it must have. The memories bloom slowly, one by one. There is no urgency, only observation, only the deep, abiding tenderness of reflection. You pause again. The candle crackles softly. You lift your head, gazing at the window. The moon has risen higher now, casting silver shapes across the sill. A moth taps gently at the glass before drifting away again. You return to the letter. There is a comfort in writing to you. It feels as though I am not alone in the room, that my thoughts find shape when placed in your presence. I know you may never read these words, but the act of writing them is, somehow, enough. You let your hand rest. The quill lies across the blotting cloth, its nib faintly darkened. The ink dries slowly in the cool air. The words do not shimmer. They do not boast. They simply are. The letter is not finished, but it is formed. It has grown like a small plant from seed, nurtured by silence and care. There is more to say, but there is no need to hurry. You sit back in your chair and listen. There is peace in this hour, and I send it to you as best I can, with ink, with memory, with love. You exhale. The page is half filled, the candle half burned. There is balance in this. You will write more. But not yet. For now you let the words rest. And so do you. The candle's light has changed now. It is lower, softer. The flame leans ever so slightly as if growing weary with you. Shadows deepen along the corners of the room. The quiet around you feels deeper now, thicker, as if the night has settled into its most silent hours. The page before you is no longer empty. The quill, though still, seems to hum faintly with anticipation. You hold it gently again. The ink waits. You begin to write once more, not hurriedly, but with the same soft deliberation that has guided your hand all evening. There are things I remember that I have never spoken aloud. The line forms without resistance. You pause after writing it, letting the truth of it settle. Memory, like ink, seeps and spreads. Some moments are clear, crystalline, and untouchable. Others are softened by the passage of time, blurred like misted glass. You write of a morning long ago, a room filled with the scent of baking bread. The light was golden, filtered through gauze curtains that swayed gently in the breeze. You remember the creak of the floorboards beneath bare feet, the quiet clatter of cutlery being laid upon the table. There had been laughter, soft and brief, the kind that feels etched into air. I think of how sunlight fell across your shoulders, and how you looked at me then, without speaking, without need. You paused, drawing a breath. That moment, so small, so quiet, comes rushing back, not with noise, but with warmth. The memory is not perfect, but it is enough. You let your hand rest as you think of other fragments, other places and time. You write of autumn walks, of crisp leaves underfoot and the sharp scent of chimney smoke carried on wind. You write of a market square, bustling with life, of apples stacked high in wooden crates, of the sound of linen flapping on stalls, of horses stamping patiently in the distance. Each scene emerges like a photograph developed slowly in warm water. Shapes and tones appear, one layer after another. They are not dramatic memories, not milestones, but they hold weight. Do you remember the cold stone steps of the cathedral? The way the wind would curl around them and tug at our coats. I always felt smaller there, yet more grounded. The thought leads to another. A letter you once wrote me, ink smudged by haste or perhaps rain. I never told you, but I carried that letter with me for years. Tucked in books, folded in drawers. It was not the words that comforted me. It was the knowledge that you had taken time to write them. You closed your eyes for a moment. Memory is heavy, but not burdensome tonight. It is like a shawl drawn over your shoulders. A little worn but warm. It carries the scent of old paper, lavender, and time. You write of silence shared with others. How some people enter a room and bring stillness with them, not from lack of words, but from gentleness. You write of an old friend, long since gone, whose laugh you still hear sometimes in the rustle of trees. I believe the soul remembers more than the mind. I believe the hands remember too. How they held, how they folded, how they gave. The room feels darker now, though not cold. The candle has worn down to a stub. Its light barely reaches the far walls. The hearth glows faintly with what's left of the fire, just enough to outline your silhouette against the desk. You write slowly now. I sometimes wonder if memory is meant to fade, or if it simply hides until it is safe to return. Tonight, it feels safe. You touch the edge of the paper, feeling its warmth where the ink is still drying. These words will not be sent, perhaps. They are not for any one person. They are simply for the act of remembering. You continue. A winter evening years ago, sitting by the window while snow fell in silence. I was alone, but not lonely. I think of that often, how solitude then felt like a gift. I think of the lamplight against the frost, and the slow, thoughtful way I wrote your name. There is a rhythm to memory. A pulse. Like breath drawn long and deep. Like the rise and fall of the sea. You speak now, in writing, of things never spoken. Not secrets, but gentle truths. You write. You never knew how much your presence changed the shape of a room. How your quiet moved me. How your absence filled the air like dusk. The page is nearly full now. The ink begins to pale. Your hand slows. You set down the quill. The blotting cloth rests beside you. The page glows softly in the last amber flickers of candlelight. Outside, dawn has not yet touched the sky, but the night feels old, as if it has seen what it needed to see. Some memories do not fade. They wait. And when we are ready, they come back to us, not to be kept, but to be written, to be made whole. You fold the letter slowly. The act is ritual, almost sacred. You do not seal it yet. You simply hold it, letting it rest, letting it breathe, letting memory sit a little longer beside you. You sip from your cup, cold now, but comforting still. The fire sighs in the grate, and you listen to the silence, full now with all that was written. You do not need to remember it all, only enough to know you were there, and that what you wrote was true. Silence does not always come easily. It is not merely the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. A presence that fills the room, slow and soft like the descent of mist over an early morning field. You have set your quill down for now. The candle continues to burn with a slow, unwavering rhythm. There is something soothing in its steadiness, as though it too respects the silence that now surrounds you. Outside, The world slumbers. The trees hold still in the dark. No carriages pass. No footsteps echo on the cobblestones. Only the faint creak of wood as the house settles into the depth of night. You are not writing at this moment. You are listening. To the breath of the air. To the pause between thoughts. To the way silence carries weight and kindness. There is silence within and without. And it has texture. You recall a time, long ago, when you first noticed the comfort of quiet. Perhaps it was a summer morning, the kind where the light is pale and soft, and the air is thick with the scent of cut grass. The house was empty but safe. The silence then was not absence, it was invitation. There are silences that cradle us, and others that reveal us to ourselves. You remember walking through a hallway once, your fingers brushing along the wall, counting the grooves in the wooden panels? No music played. No voices called out. Just the hush of footfall and the sound of your own heart, steady and sure. Sometimes silence is not still at all. You think of a winter morning, snow falling so thickly that even the sound of the village disappeared beneath it. A white hush. A stillness you could almost touch. The fire had burned down to its embers then, just as it does now. You had stood by the window, wrapped in wool, watching the slow drift of flakes. The world had paused. And in that pause, everything felt possible. You take up the quill again, not to write a letter, but a simple line. Just one thought, captured softly. Let silence speak where words would press too hard. There is grace in quiet. You reflect on that now. On how a room holds its breath after laughter, how a chapel seems to murmur even when empty, how forests whisper with silence that only the trees can hear. You write of moments shared in silence. A look held too long. A hand placed gently atop another. The kind of silence that says everything that words cannot. I have shared silences that echo still. Not because they were loud, but because they were deep. The ink glides easily again. You are not in a rush. The paper accepts your thoughts as gently as the night accepts your presence. You write of sitting beside someone who did not speak for hours, and how you did not need them to. Their company was enough. Their stillness was a kind of dialogue. We spoke nothing that day, but I understood everything. You pause. Silence grows longer. You welcome it. The room now feels suspended in time, not moving forward or back. A moment held in perfect quiet. You sip from a cup cool now, and set it down softly. You think of the silences held in nature. The hush of a lake before sunrise. The still air in a meadow after a summer storm. The muffled sound of your own heartbeat in the woods. You write. Even the earth holds its breath sometimes. And when it does, I try to listen. You close your eyes, and for a time, do not write at all. You simply exist in the silence. The candle flickers once. You reopen your eyes. The flame has not gone out. You take up the quill again. When I was young, I feared silence. I thought it meant loneliness. Now I see it for what it is, a companion. A space in which to grow. A place where thoughts can stretch without walls. You set the quill down once more, watching as the ink begins to dry. Not hurriedly, but patiently. Silence is not empty. It is the beginning of understanding. You allow the words to linger, to sit quietly upon the page, offering no demand. There is nothing more to add. Not now. The silence has said enough. And so you listen to the room, to the breath of the candle, to yourself. You let the night go on, gently in stillness. The candle has burned low, yet still it endures. The wick bends now, its glow smaller but no less warm. The flame seems to sigh, mirroring your own quiet breath. A pause has arrived, not a sharp one, not jarring, but soft, like a gentle hand laid upon your shoulder, asking you to rest. Your fingers, ink-stained and relaxed, have stilled. The quill rests on the cloth beside the inkwell. A pause in writing, a moment not for words, but for reflection. Sometimes, the ink does not flow. Not because it is gone, but because the soul has stopped to listen. You find yourself looking at the page, at the soft gray-blue margins where your thoughts have not yet wandered. They wait. You wait. There is no urgency. There are days when words resist the page. When silence arrives not as peace, but as hesitation. You write that slowly, letting it unfold like a ribbon. Not all writing flows like a stream. Some days are dry riverbeds, cracked and quiet. Still beautiful, still real, but needing time to fill again. You look around the room. The fire in the hearth is just coals now, their glow pulsing slowly. You think of the last time you stepped outside, the air brisk against your cheeks, the earth soft beneath your boots. You remember the rhythm of walking, the quiet of it, the way the world felt open and unspoken. Sometimes, to write again, you must step away. Today, the ink paused, so I listened instead. I watched the clouds stretch thin across the sky, and I folded my thoughts into the stillness between birdsong. It is not failure, this pause. It is a rhythm. The heart beats, then rests. So too the hand. You reflect on those who wrote before you, scribes in candlelit rooms, their backs aching, their breath fogging winter windows. How many nights must they have paused? How many words never made it to parchment? You feel kinship in that unspoken space. The page is honest. It does not demand. It does not mind waiting. You rise from your desk for a while. The floor is cool. You stretch, move slowly. The room greets you again as if for the first time. The small things become vivid, the curve of a teacup, the soft grain of the table, the way dust moves through a sunbeam. Returning to your seat, you take the quill once more. Not to write much, but simply to be near the ink again. Familiar. Even when no words come, I remain a writer. My thoughts still hold shape. My heart still remembers how to speak. There is power in interruption. A quiet strength in the act of yielding. You recall a letter once begun, never finished. Not for lack of care, but because life had drawn you away. You still remember the words you meant to write. And perhaps, that memory is enough. You dip the quill, but let the ink bead without moving. I used to fear pauses. Now I welcome them. For in them, I return to myself. You hear the clock tick gently. The wood of the desk creaks beneath your elbow. All of this small symphony of quiet, belongs to the writing, too. And slowly, almost without knowing, your hand begins again. Not all writing is made of ink. Some is made of watching, of breathing, of waiting. And when the ink flows again, it does so with deeper purpose. You let the thought end there. Not with a flourish, but with a breath. The page, still mostly blank, holds more than words now. It holds space. It holds truth. The candle gutters softly. You rise to tend to it. Not because the light has failed, but because it, too, has done its work. You look to the window. The sky has begun to pale. Dawn. The night has been kind, even in its pauses. The ink, interrupted, has shown you something precious. That the hand may rest, that the page may wait, and that the soul, always, returns. There is a small box on the shelf near your writing desk. You reach for it now with familiar care. Its hinges creak gently as you lift the lid, revealing a stack of aged papers, letters, each folded neatly, each worn at the edges. Letters that were never posted. Words that were written then held back. The candle flickers beside you, and you settle in again. These letters were not forgotten. They were kept. Each one written in the quiet of different nights, each carrying words too personal, too uncertain, or too sacred to send. Yet they endure. You take one at random and unfold it. The ink has faded slightly, but the hand is still yours. You asked me how the days have been, and I told you simply, quiet. But there is more I could have said, had I trusted the silence between us not to grow. You run your fingers along the edge of the paper. A softness lingers in the touch. The person this letter was meant for may never read it, but somehow that seems right. It wasn't the sending that mattered, it was the writing. The clarity that came from placing thoughts on paper, where they could exist without interruption. You pick up another. Sometimes I imagine what your voice would sound like if you read these words aloud. If you would pause at the same places. If you would smile at the lines I almost didn't write. This letter was folded twice. Written at a time when you still hesitated to be vulnerable. The page bears a smudge where the ink once blurred under your thumb. Some letters were written in sorrow, others in tenderness, a few in hope. You find one with a dried flower pressed into its fold. You remember the day clearly. The walk through the fields, the way the petals trembled in the wind. You had picked the flower absent-mindedly, carried it home, and tucked it in the envelope. You didn't write much that day, just a line. This is the color of your laughter. No one else would understand it. But that, too, was part of its truth. You pause to reflect on what it means to keep unsent letters. To return to them, not as a wound, but as a witness to who you were in those moments. The things I didn't say sometimes say more about me than the ones I did. You take a breath. The room around you is still. The fire has gone out, but the warmth remains in the wood. There is comfort in knowing that even unshared words hold meaning. Some letters begin abruptly, without introduction. Some trail off, unfinished. You read one now that ends in mid-thought. I wonder sometimes if you still remember the bench beneath the chestnut tree. That's all it says. The sentence hangs in the air, suspended like a question never asked aloud. You take up the quill, not to respond, but to write your own letter for tonight. A letter that may never leave this desk. Dear one, I woke tonight not because of dreams, but because of memory. You appear not in vision, but in feeling. And so I write, not for you to receive, but for me to remember. You once stood in a room like this. Or maybe it was only in my mind. The candlelight danced on your cheek, and your shadow curved into mine. There were no words, only breath. But I carry that moment still. You do not know how many letters I never sent you, or how many lines were started with your name. You pause, letting the words rest. There's no need to finish. The writing itself is enough. This page, like the others, will be folded gently, placed in the box, and left to be. The box is not a place of sorrow. It is a place of safekeeping. A museum of quiet truths. Some words are too fragile to be shared, but they are no less true. You sit back, the candlelight catching the gold of the box's hinges. You close the lid, slowly, gently, as though not to wake the words within. You take one last look around the room. Tonight, again, you have written what needed to be written, even if no one reads it but you. And in that, there is peace. There is a fragrance that lives only in time, faint, crumbling, and warm. The scent of old pages, tucked in a worn book, resting on a shelf bathed in golden light. You notice it now as you open a volume you haven't touched in years. The dust lifts gently. The scent rises like memory made visible. It is not a strong scent, not perfumed or sharp. It is quiet, like the whisper of linen left in sunlight. It carries traces of everything the book has known, hands that held it, shelves that kept it, years that passed around it like slow-moving wind. You sit with the book for a while, not reading at first, but simply holding it. The texture of the cover beneath your fingers is familiar. A leather worn smooth in places, still stubbornly creased in others. You open to a page somewhere in the middle, not to begin a story, but to step inside it. The words are printed in type no longer used, the font curling like ironwork. A small pressed leaf marks the margin. You did not place it there. Someone before you did. And so begins a quiet connection between you and a person you'll never meet. Old books are not just stories. They are presents. They are proof of time spent slowly. You inhale again, letting the pages speak without speaking. This book is a collection of essays worn and yellowed. You recognize none of the authors, but the titles are elegant in their simplicity. On a quiet window, the proper use of rain, when autumn pauses. Each title reads like a breath. You begin to read. The essay is slow, gentle, a meditation on stillness. The author describes watching a moth drift past a lantern on a porch. 3 paragraphs devoted to the motion of wings in evening light. You are drawn in, not because the story excites, but because it slows your heart. You wonder who wrote this, what pen they used, what weather stirred the curtains at their window as they wrote. They lived perhaps a century ago, and yet this page still carries their thought. To read the words of someone long gone is to feel the quiet triumph of memory. You read on. The sentences unfold like the turning of leaves in a calm wind. The room around you settles. You are not alone, not entirely. The scent of old pages is a kind of companionship. You place the book on the table beside your tea. Steam curls upward in lazy spirals. You stare at the cover for a while, thinking not about the story, but the fact that it still exists. You remember your first time in a library. The way it felt endless. A cathedral of stillness. The way your fingers trembled as you reached for a book too large for your arms. You were young. Odd. Silent. Books do not age alone. They take us with them. You open another book from the shelf. This one thinner, its spine cracked. The first page is inscribed. Today, on your birthday. May this find you on a peaceful evening. There is no date. No signature. Just that one line, handwritten in ink now faded to rust. You wonder if A. read it on such an evening. You hope they did. There is comfort in knowing books outlive us. That what we write, or even what we underline, might someday be touched by another's hand. In a library, time does not pass. It waits. You rise from your desk and walk toward your own shelf. Not a grand one, just a few rows of well-loved titles. Some of them yours. Others gifted. A few found in markets on damp mornings. Each one a story layered with more than words. You select a small collection of poems. You recognize your own handwriting in the margin of one page. This line reminded me of the sea. You smile. You haven't seen the sea in years. You write now, not a letter, but a simple note. You tuck it into the back of the book, where it will remain. Perhaps someone, someday, will find it. If you are reading this, may your night be gentle. May your thoughts move slowly. And may this book bring you some small peace. You close the cover. The scent lingers. It always will. The candle beside you burns low, its wax curling. You rest your hand on the page, as though to thank it. The room exhales with you. Tonight you've read more than words. UV red echoes. UV breathed in the hush of years. And the book, quiet and warm, remains beside you like a sleeping companion, waiting, once again, to be opened. The room greets you like an old friend. Nothing has moved, yet everything feels newly familiar. The same chair awaits you, the soft indent of use formed gently over time. The desk bears faint ink marks that no cloth has scrubbed away. The window, slightly ajar, lets in a breeze that barely shifts the curtain. You sit. Not from obligation, but from rhythm. There is no moment of decision. Your body moves into the space as though returning to a forgotten conversation. The cup of tea you placed there earlier has cooled slightly. The notebook is open to a fresh page. The pen rests diagonally across the margin. This is routine. Not dullness, but comfort. Not sameness, but stability. To repeat something meaningful is not to waste time. It is to understand it more fully. You light the candle with practiced ease. The scent of beeswax and cotton rises. The light, soft and golden, touches the corner of your desk. Each morning, you write one sentence before anything else. It doesn't matter what it says, it's the act that matters. A sentence to wake the page. A sentence to wake you. This morning, the sky was the color of old lace. Some mornings you write of weather, others of small tasks. Sometimes, you only describe how the ink flowed. The ink moved like thought, slow and sure. There is grace in ritual. The way your fingers know the curve of the cup. The way your eyes seek the same patch of wall before you begin. You have placed a single photograph there, not to remember anyone, but to hold space. The photograph is of a door. Wooden. Weathered. Slightly open. You once read that monks repeat the same chant daily not because they forget it, but because each day gives it new weight. Your pen begins to move, not with story, but with presence. You write what you feel, not what you know. The quiet arrived before the sun. The ticking of the clock becomes a metronome. Outside, a bird shifts in the branches. The world continues, but gently. You recall the baker, down the street, who rises with the moon and lets the scent of bread rise with the sun. You do not know their name, but their routine reaches you all the same. Your pen scratches softly. I wonder if the sky thanks the trees for standing in the same place each day. You smile. It's a strange thought, but oddly comforting. Routine does not resist change, it allows for it. By returning to the same place, you notice what is different. The candle flickers slightly. A draft, perhaps. You pull the shawl around your shoulders and continue. Each morning the same. And yet each morning new. You open the drawer and remove a small token, a pebble from a walk, a ribbon, a note. Each day, you place something beside the candle. Today, it is a dried leaf, thin and curling like the edge of a worn page. What we do again and again, we carry into the world with us. Your eyes close briefly. The room is warm. The rhythm of writing has calmed your breath. Sometimes others call it habit. You call it anchoring. I write not to fill the page, but to find my place upon it. The page, once blank, now holds a slow weaving of thoughts. None grand, none profound, just true. The clock chimes. An hour has passed, though you did not mark its beginning. You place the pen down, stretch your fingers gently, and fold the page closed. The candle will stay lit a little longer. You will return again tomorrow. And tomorrow, the room will greet you again. Still, but not stillness. Routine, but not repetition. The shape of your day, quietly carved in ink and flame. The morning drapes itself softly over the landscape, a hush that is less silence and more the absence of urgency. There is no wind yet, only the stillness of air that has not yet decided to move. The rooftops catch the earliest light like hands cupping warmth. This is the quiet hour, when even the birds hesitate, as though to not disturb the gentle rhythm of beginning. Inside, the same candle sits at the corner of your desk. It has grown shorter over the passing days, its wax a soft memory of flame. The wick waits patiently. The match flares for a second, sharp and brief, before giving way to the quiet flicker of the flame that will stay. Its light casts a warm oval on the wood grain. There is a kind of sacredness to repetition, not in the novelty of it, but in its commitment. To return each day, to the same corner, the same tools, the same motion. It is less about discipline and more about returning to oneself, to the moment when thought and hand and breath move in time. Today, you write more slowly, not because you are tired, but because you are listening. There is a quiet beneath the quiet, a softer hum behind the ordinary sounds, the distant call of a kettle, the creak of a floorboard settling, the shift of a chair against the wall. You draw the pen across the page with care, not to preserve neatness, but to honor time. Time, which often rushes and pushes, is invited here to linger. The ink flows in curves and loops, a small choreography of presence. This morning I watched a spider's web catch the wind without breaking. You pause. Not to find the next words, but to notice the space between them. The breath. The stillness. The world does not rush. It unfolds. The room is unchanged. But something in it feels deeper today. Perhaps it is the light, filtering through gauze curtains like water through reeds. Or the smell, not of anything specific, but of time spent here, quietly layered, tea leaves, candle wax, old wood, something like lavender. From the drawer you retrieve a stone. Smooth. Pale. Carried back from a walk near the river, months ago. You place it beside the leaf you left yesterday. A small altar of memory. Not grand, not curated. Just fragments of being. You think of those who came before, not famous names, but ordinary hands that folded cloth, stirred pots, lifted children, planted seeds. The continuity of their lives continues in your gestures. Even now. Even here. Outside, the street is still. A distant window opens. Someone sweeps the threshold. These are the echoes of lives shaped not by the extraordinary, but by care. You listen to them like music. No melody, just rhythm. A life lived in time. The words you write now are not planned. They arrive like weather. Soft, sometimes unsure, but always moving. You write. I think the trees remember the hands that planted them. You smile faintly. You do not know if it is true, but it feels real enough. You lean back slightly, eyes drifting to the photograph again, the old wooden door, still slightly open. It has watched you each morning, its silence a kind of companionship. You wonder who once walked through it. You wonder if someone placed a stone on their own desk, far away, long ago. The candle's flame wavers. A breath of wind, or the end of a sentence. The world beyond the window begins to stir more fully. A cart rolls down a distant lane. A dog barks once, then falls silent. Somewhere, a pot clinks against the stove. The day is arriving. But you are not finished yet. There is more to witness. More to write. The comfort of continuity is not in the sameness, but in the permission it gives us to change slowly. The page fills. Not quickly. Not fully. But meaningfully. And when your pen finally stills, it is not an end. It is a pause. You place the cap on the ink bottle. You fold the page. You sit for a while longer, watching the candle burn. And though the world will pull at you again soon, with tasks and voices and small demands, you carry something quiet with you. The quiet that shapes the day, not with noise, but with presence. The quiet that does not ask you to be more, only to be. Tomorrow you will return. The chair will be waiting, and the candle will remember. You've come to the end of the writing, but not the end of quiet. The candle is low now, its wax curled gently along the base. The ink has dried. The last page is folded. And the room remembers you. The window stays half open. The tea long cold. The stone, the photograph, the ribbon, all in their places. Nothing urgent waits. Nothing asks more of you. Just the hush of everything that's already been said. Let the light dim. Let the stillness take over. Let your breath find its own rhythm now. No more stories. No more pages. Only the warmth of quiet company. Let your eyes rest. Let the soft crackle of fire hold you now. You are safe. You are home. You are already drifting.